In 1935, outside an Oklahoma town called Spiro, men with picks broke through the wall of a sealed burial chamber and heard 6 centuries of air escape in a rush. In the lamplight, feather capes, copper plates, carved shell, thousands of objects, untouched since before Columbus. No photographs taken. They started selling from car trunks. That is where this list begins. These 12 places are scattered across the United States, and Spiro is far from the strangest. That place makes this list. So do 11 others, including limestone boulders on a dry Nevada lakebed holding carvings, older than Stonehenge, and a stone wheel at 9,600 feet in Wyoming that still tracks the summer solstice. Stay to the end, because number 1 on this list is the largest city in pre-Columbian North America. 20,000 people, 120 earthen mounds, and it vanished without leaving a single story in any neighboring tribe's memory. This channel covers unexplained American history. Subscribe if that sounds like your research hole. Today we are counting down 12 ancient ruins in America no one can explain. Number 12. Dighton Rock, Berkeley, Massachusetts. In 1680, a Puritan minister named John Danforth drew the inscriptions on a boulder sitting in the Taunton River and sent the drawing to the Royal Society of London. It remains in the British Museum today. The rock is 11 feet long, 5 feet high, and weighs 40 tons. Its surface is covered in overlapping carvings, lines, shapes, and figures dense enough that after 3.5 centuries of study, nobody has agreed on what any of them mean. More than 35 theories have been advanced. Native American, Norse, Portuguese, Phoenician, Chinese, Japanese. Cotton Mather published a reference to it in 1689. George Washington was shown a copy at Harvard in 1789. A Danish archaeologist in 1837 claimed to read an inscription. Thorfinn and his 151 companions took possession of this land. Almost no other scholar could find those same words on the rock. The boulder was moved from the river in 1963 and now sits behind glass in a small museum inside Dighton Rock State Park. Free to visit, quiet. Scholar Samuel Eliot Morrison studied it repeatedly and described it as, in his words, a remarkable demonstration of human credulity. 340 years, more than 35 theories. And the best we can say is that the people who most wanted to find their answer in those carvings found it. Number 11. Winnemucca Lake, Nevada. In 2013, a team at the University of Colorado published findings in the Journal of Archaeological Science. Their conclusion: limestone boulders on a dry Nevada lakebed hold carvings that are at least 10,500 years old. Possibly as old as 14,800. That is more than 5,000 years before Stonehenge. More than 3,000 years before the Egyptian pyramids. The lakebed sits about 35 miles northeast of Reno. Completely dry now. The boulders, once submerged, stand exposed on a white alkali flat. Their surface is grooved with deep, deliberate designs. Trees, ovals, diamonds and chains, branching forms, swirls. Some motifs reach 3 feet across. The dating worked like this. When the lake level rose and submerged those boulders after the carvings were made, carbonate crust formed over the designs. Scientists measured that crust determined when the lake last covered that elevation and worked backward. 2 possible carving windows, 14,800 to 13,200 years ago, and 11300 to 10,500 years ago. The second aligns with other artifacts found in the region, including textiles dated to 10,700 years old. If the earlier window is correct, these carvings were made while woolly mammoths still walked the continent, possibly by some of the very first people to enter the Americas. The site is within the Pyramid Lake Indian Reservation. There is no visitor infrastructure. Access requires permission from the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. The carvings have no identified maker, no established meaning, and no story attached to them. They emerged from a buried lake bed into a desert that no longer resembles the world in which they were made. Number 10. Bighorn Medicine Wheel, Wyoming. A dirt trail in Wyoming's Bighorn National Forest climbs to 9,642 feet. In summer, past the snow line, you reach an alpine meadow with 360-degree mountain views and wind that does not stop. At the end of the trail, a stone circle, 82 feet across, with 28 limestone spokes radiating from a central cairn, 6 smaller cairns placed at the outer rim, and prayer flags left by contemporary visitors snapping in the cold. Nobody knows who built it. First formally documented in 1902 by ethnologist S.C. Sims on behalf of the Chicago Field Museum. The wheel was analyzed in the early 1970 seconds by astronomer John Eddy, who found that the cairns align with the summer solstice, sunrise and sunset, and with the heliacal rising of 3 stars, Aldebaran, Rigel, and Sirius. A later study found a cairn pair marking the rise of Fomalhaut 28 days before the solstice. Those alignments are most precise for approximately 1200 CE. Researchers believe the wheel was built somewhere between 300 and 800 years ago, based partly on a single tree ring sample from wood in the Western Cairn. At least 10 Native American nations, including the Arapaho, Crow, Cheyenne, Lakota, and Shoshone, consider this site sacred. None has claimed to have built it. It belongs in the oral record to a time before memory. To encode that kind of astronomical precision at that altitude, using only limestone and human hands, required multi-generational observation and calculation. Someone did the math and moved the rocks. They never said who they were. Number 9. Blythe, Intaglios, Riverside County, California. About 15 miles north of Blythe in the Colorado Desert near the Arizona border, 6 enormous figures are scraped into 2 low desert mesas, 3 human forms, 2 four-legged animals, 1 spiral. The largest human figure runs 171 feet from head to toe. They are only fully visible from the air. Nobody outside the region knew they existed until the 12th of November, 1931, when Army Air Corps pilot George Palmer looked down during a routine flight from Hoover Dam to Los Angeles. The figures were made by scraping away the darker surface rock to reveal lighter soil beneath, with the displaced stones used to outline the shapes. Radiocarbon dates range from 900 BCE to 1200 CE. The Mojave and Quechan peoples say the human figures represent Mastamho, the creator of all life. No tribe has claimed to have made them. During World War II, General Patton used the Colorado Desert for military training. His forces drove vehicles across the region without knowing the Intaglios were there. When National Geographic and the Smithsonian sent a team in 1952, tire tracks from Patton's exercises were visible on some of the figures, designs that had survived potentially 2,000 years, marked by an army that never once looked down. All 6 figures are still present and enclosed within fenced areas, open at all hours, no fee. They are the most famous of more than 200 similar intaglios in the Colorado Desert, the only concentration of desert ground drawings of this type in North America. An entire armed force trained on top of them without knowing, that one is hard to shake. Number 8. Newport Tower, Newport, Rhode Island. In Turo Park, 1 block off Bellevue Avenue, there is a round stone tower resting on 8 stone arches, roughly 22 feet across at its base. No interior floors. You cannot enter it. You walk around it. The most credible explanation is a 17th century windmill. A deed dated the 28th of February, 1677, and the will of Benedict Arnold, the first colonial governor of Rhode Island, not the Revolutionary War trader, refers to my stone-built windmill. Mainstream archaeology accepts this. Not everyone does. In 1839, a Danish archaeologist named Carl Christian Raffin published a theory. The tower was a Norse round church, built in the 12th century by Bishop Eric Knupson. The idea was embraced immediately. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote a poem. Newport opened a hotel called Hotel Viking in 1925. Postcards started labeling the structure Ancient Viking Tower. By the early 19th century, the tower was the #1 tourist attraction in all of Rhode Island. Its image appeared on shaving mugs, beer steins, teapots, and candy dishes, all before anyone had confirmed the structure was old at all. Additional theories since have attributed the tower to Scottish Knights Templar, Chinese explorers, a Portuguese sailor, and Elizabethan Englishmen. Mortar tests in the 20th century dated the structure to the mid-1600s. Pre-Columbian theorists dispute the methodology. The tower stands in Turo Park today, open for free year-round. A museum across the street presents every competing theory with equal enthusiasm. Rhode Island built a tourist identity on a mystery it could have solved. The ambiguity paid better. Number 7. Great Serpent Mound, Adams County, Ohio. Here's the thing about Serpent Mound. It is 1,348 feet long, nearly a quarter mile. It coils across a ridgeline in rural southern Ohio, roughly 3 feet high, shaped like an uncoiling snake, with its tail curled behind and its open mouth at the forward end. It is the largest effigy mound of a serpent in the world. It sits on top of a 4-mile-wide meteorite impact crater. The mound contains no burials, no artifacts, no tools. It was never a tomb. Nobody is certain what it was. Dating is still contested. Early researchers attributed construction to the Adena culture, somewhere around 300 BCE. More recent radiocarbon work places it around 1070 CE, attributed instead to the Fort Ancient culture. Both attributions remain actively defended. A 1987 study established that the oval at the serpent's head aligns precisely with the summer solstice sunset. Researcher William Romaine identified 6 curves in the body that may correspond to lunar alignments. One theory holds that construction was triggered by the 1054 CE supernova, the explosion that created the Crab Nebula, visible in daylight for 2 weeks. Another points to Halley's Comet in 1066. On the longest day of the year, the sun sets directly into the open mouth of a quarter-mile snake as seen from the serpent's coiled tail. That alignment was deliberate. Everything else remains a guess. The site is managed by the Arc of Appalachia. A walking path follows the full length of the mound. Every summer solstice, people gather to watch the sun go down exactly where someone intended for it to. We open this video with the chamber at Spiro, Oklahoma. Let us know in the comments which entry has surprised you most. So far, if you are enjoying the research, a thumbs up helps these stories find more people. We have 6 entries left, and they get bigger from here. Number 6. Casa Grande Ruins, Pinal County, Arizona. North of Coolidge, in the flat floor of the Sonoran Desert, there is a 4-story adobe structure approximately 60 feet long. Walls 4.5 feet thick at the base. The first floor filled solid with earth. Apparently to support the floors above, 3 walls contain circular holes aligned to astronomical events. The outer walls face the 4 cardinal directions. Nobody knows what it was for. The structure was built around 1350 CE and abandoned along with its surrounding community by approximately 1450. About a century of use. Then left. In 1694, a Jesuit priest named Father Eusebio Francisco Kino became the first European to document the ruins. He had traveled widely and seen European cathedrals. He named the building Casa Grande, Big House, and wrote about it in wonder. When the railroad arrived in the 1880 seconds, tourists began chipping pieces off the walls as souvenirs. The destruction was significant enough that President Benjamin Harrison set aside a square mile of Arizona territory around the ruins in 1892, making Casa Grande the first prehistoric site formally protected by the U.S. government. American archaeological preservation law exists because people could not stop taking fragments of a building nobody could explain. The site is a national monument today, open year-round. The main structure stands under a large corrugated metal canopy built in 1932. Ranger-led tours operate regularly. The ancestral Sonoran desert people built and maintained a canal irrigation system in this desert for over 1000 years. Then they built something unlike anything else in the region. Then they left. The question is not only what this building was, it is why nothing like it was ever built here before or after. Number 5. Aztalan, Jefferson County, Wisconsin. Around 1050 CE, in what is now southern Wisconsin, a community began constructing something that had no business existing that far north. 3 flat-topped pyramidal platform mounds. A stockade of log and clay walls with watchtower bastions, built using the same wattle and daub technique as Cahokia, the great Mississippian city near what is now St. Louis, Mississippian pottery, Mississippian architecture, Mississippian artifacts. This was a Mississippian city, 300 miles north of the Mississippian world. The builders appear to have come from Cahokia. Strontium isotope analysis of human remains at the Wisconsin site confirmed that some residents originated from the Cahokia region. They traveled north, chose the west bank of the Crawfish River in Jefferson County, and built a fortified version of their home. The fortification was part of the original design, not added later in response to threat. When they arrived, they already planned for walls. They held on from approximately 1050 to 1300 CE, about 250 years. Then the site was abandoned, suddenly, from the archaeological record. Proposed causes include severe drought, conflict with local woodland peoples, and internal societal collapse. None has been confirmed. In the early 19th century, settlers named the site Aztalan, after the mythological Aztec homeland. It has no connection to Aztec culture. It is a Mississippian outpost, alone on the Wisconsin prairie. When archaeologist Samuel Barrett excavated the site in the early 20th century, he found butchered, burned, and broken human bones processed in the same refuse areas as animal food waste, and interpreted this as evidence of ceremonial cannibalism. Later researchers have described the evidence as debated. What is not debated? This site shows extensive evidence of violence, and the heavy fortification was part of the original plan from day one. Aztalan State Park is open and managed by the Wisconsin DNR. 2 platform mounds and a section of reconstructed stockade are visible today. Someone traveled 300 miles north, built walls on arrival, and kept them standing for 250 years. We do not know what they were defending against. We do not know what eventually ended it. Number 4. Spiro Mounds, LaFleur County, Oklahoma. We opened this video in the chamber at Spiro. Here is the full story. The site had been occupied from approximately 800 CE. At its peak, between 1000 and 1200 CE, the Spiro people maintained trade connections spanning from the Gulf of California to the Gulf of Mexico. This was not a marginal community, it was a hub. By the early 1932s, the Mound sat on leased farmland during the Great Depression. In 1933, a group formed the Poccola Mining Company, obtained a 2-year lease, and began tunneling into Craig Mound, the site's second largest earthwork. The goal was artifacts to sell. In 1935, a pick blade broke through into a hollow sealed chamber. Witnesses described a hissing sound, humid Oklahoma air escaping a space that had been sealed for 6 centuries. In the lamplight, copper plates, engraved shell cups, beaded baskets, feather capes, thousands of objects. Perfectly preserved, no photographs taken of the arrangement, no records made of position. Within days, the contents were being sold from car trunks at roadside stops and through relic magazines. The Kansas City Star called it a King Tut tomb in the Arkansas Valley. By the time Oklahoma passed its first Antiquities Protection Law and shut down the Palkala Mining Company in November 1935, approximately one-third of Craig Mound had been destroyed. Artifacts dispersed to museums and private collections worldwide, among them the British Museum, the Louvre, and the Hermitage. Scientific excavation began in 1936. Even after 2 years of sustained looting, what remained still constitutes the largest assemblage of material ever recovered at a single Mississippian site. Historian David LeVere described what happened at Spiro as one of the major archaeological tragedies of all time. 12 mounds remain. The Spiro Mounds Archaeological Center is open to the public, managed by the Oklahoma Historical Society. The chamber was sealed for 600 years and destroyed in a matter of months. No one will ever know what it looked like whole. Number 3. Chaco Canyon, San Juan County, New Mexico. The roads are the part that stays with you. The ancestral Puebloans who built Chaco Canyon carved roads across the San Juan Basin, some 30 feet wide, running in perfectly straight lines for hundreds of miles. Where cliffs block the route, they cut stairways into the rock face. The roads do not bend for terrain. The Great North Road runs due north from the canyon for approximately 35 miles and ends in a steep Badlands Canyon. It connects to no major population center. Some researchers call it a spirit road, a ritual path marking a cosmologically significant direction rather than a practical route. The canyon itself sits roughly 70 miles from the nearest town, accessible only by about 20 miles of unpaved road. From approximately 850 CE, the ancestral Puebloans quarried sandstone and hauled timber from forests more than 50 miles away to build 15 major complexes here. Pueblo Bonito, the largest, contained over 600 rooms and stood 4 to 5 stories. For centuries, these were the largest buildings in North America. Many structures are astronomically aligned, doors, windows, and walls calibrated to the solstices, equinoxes, and the 18.6-year lunar cycle. The precision required sustained, multi-generational observation. By approximately 1150 CE, the site began to decline. By 1300, it was abandoned. As the Chacoans left, they ceremonially burned their kivas and left most possessions behind. Here's the wild part. Archaeologists found hundreds of turkey remains inside the great houses, not sacrificed, not consumed. Evidence of macaws kept in purpose-built aviaries imported from Mexico. Elaborate feasting deposits. But little evidence of the agricultural infrastructure a permanent population would have required. Descendant Pueblo peoples today, among them the Hopi, Zuni, and various Rio Grande communities, carry oral traditions about this canyon that archaeology is still working to confirm. Chaco appears to have been a place people came to, not a place people lived. Chaco Culture National Historical Park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The ruins, roads, and kivas are accessible, unmarked trails. Dark sky programs run at night. You drive 20 miles of unpaved road to get there. When the canyon appears below you, it is immediately clear why someone chose it. Number 2. Poverty Point. West Carroll Parish, Louisiana. Start with what was built. 6 enormous concentric semi-elliptical earthen ridges, a central plaza, 5 mounds, and a range of supporting earthworks arranged on a slightly elevated stretch of northeast Louisiana floodplain. The largest mound stands 72 feet tall. At the time of its construction, it was the largest earthen mound in North America. It held that record for 2,200 years. Now consider who built it. Not farmers, not a society with a ruling class commanding laborers. The people of Poverty Point were hunter-fishers, mobile, egalitarian communities, with no evidence of a chiefdom. Washington University anthropologist T.R. Kidder estimated the construction required moving, conservatively, the equivalent of 140,000 dump truck loads of dirt. By hand, without wheels, without horses, without metal tools. The site was built between 1700 and 1100 BCE, roughly the same centuries that Stonehenge was being finished and Egypt was at its height. UNESCO designated it a World Heritage Site in 2014. Every prior model of civilization assumed monumental construction, required agriculture, surpluses to feed workers, hierarchies to command them, rulers to direct the project. Poverty Point demolished that assumption. Its builders preceded organized agriculture in this region. They broke the model before the model was written. The leading current theory developed through new radiocarbon dating and reanalyzed artifacts is that Poverty Point was not a permanent settlement at all. It was a periodic gathering place, egalitarian communities converging from across the Southeast and Midwest to trade, hold ceremonies, and collectively build something extraordinary. Then they went home. Around 1100 BCE, the site was abandoned. The original culture eventually vanished. No identifiable descendants remain. The mounds are still there, covered in grass. Tram tours cross the site. Hunter-gatherers built the largest earthen monument in the Americas and held that record for 22 centuries. Everything we thought we knew about who can build a civilization, they got there first. Number 1. Cahokia Mounds, Illinois. You exit off Interstate 55 near Collinsville. There is a gas station. There is a fast food restaurant. There is a strip of ordinary road. And then the ground rises, not like a natural ridge, not like a hill, but like something deliberately placed into the floodplain. An enormous flat-topped mass of earth ascending 100 feet above the Mississippi Valley. From the top, on a clear day, you can see the Gateway Arch across the river in St. Louis. In every direction, the valley opens out below you. The mound beneath your feet covers 1/4 acres at its base. Its footprint is larger than the base of the Great Pyramid at Giza. It was built by people carrying dirt in woven baskets, one load at a time, across generations. Around 1050 CE, something happened here that archaeologists call the Big Bang. Within a single generation, a modest settlement became the largest city on the continent north of Mexico. The population reached somewhere between 20,000 and 40,000 people. A central plaza, the size of 35 football fields, was laid out with geometric precision. 4 circular timber structures, sun calendars, now called Woodhenge, tracked the seasons. The original site eventually covered 6 square miles and contained approximately 120 mounds. Monk's Mound, where you are standing, was the tallest man-made structure in the United States until 1867. No one knows what triggered the Big Bang: a religious movement, a charismatic leader, a favorable shift in climate and crops. The theories are several. The evidence is incomplete. Cahokia Mounds is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was the most extensive urban center in prehistoric North America. Evidence from ancient teeth indicates roughly 1/3 of its residents had migrated from other parts of the continent. There were trade networks, a timber palisade surrounding the central precinct, ceremonial architecture, and clear evidence of a social hierarchy, drawing people from 1,000 miles in every direction. By approximately 1200 CE, the population began declining. By 1350 to 1400, the city was abandoned. Proposed causes include drought, flooding, internal political collapse, disease, and loss of timber resources. Here is the detail that stops people cold. The Osage, the Omaha, the Ponca, the Quapaw. Every native nation that has lived in this region for the past 600 years. Not one of them carries a legend, a story, or a name for Cahokia, or for the people who built it. The continent's largest pre-Columbian city was abandoned within a few centuries of European contact, and no neighboring culture preserved a single account of its existence. It was not simply forgotten. It was erased. The distinction matters. Much of the original site now lies under modern suburban development and will never be excavated. Monk's Mound is still climbable. The Interpretive Museum is excellent. Admission to the site is free. An entire civilization built a city and held it for 300 years, and left so completely that no one who came after had a name for them. Not the size, the silence. There are dozens more that did not make this list. The Newark earthworks in Ohio, the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde, the Aztec ruins in New Mexico. If one entry stands out personally, it is Poverty Point. The idea that hunter-gatherers held an earthwork record for 22 centuries. Which entry surprised you most? Which ruin belongs here that we missed? Subscribe if you want more of this kind of research.